All right. I'm sorry. I'm going to harsh the buzz for a minute. We are looking at a headline about Microsoft forcing install of Copilot starting in October. Forcing install is slightly more alarmist than in practice. This is going from uh, opting an opt out that is clearly communicated to a opt out that is much more obfuscated and pushed out to users. So this is going to force install on Windows devices with 365 desktop clients starting in October. Actually, it started last year, completing coming up soon. Installation will not occur on systems in the European Economic Area. So again, this is one of those situations where we're seeing some governmental regulation of data protections having some impact on more risky decisions pushed by vendors. So the idea is that Copilot is going to give centralized access across 365 and all of your productivity apps. It will be added to the start menu and enabled by default. You are able to opt out through the 365 apps admin center. Also worth noting as part of this story, Microsoft is integrating Copilot agents into the Edge sidebar and adding a taskbar pinning option. So if you do want to opt out of this, you're going to sign into 365 apps admin center, obviously with an admin account. Go to customization, then device configuration, and then modern app settings. Hilarious menu naming. Select 365 Copilot app, and then clear the automatic installation, enable automatic installation of Copilot checkbox. So I think, it's been maybe a month since we had a story specifically talking about Copilot. We've had a story just about every week looking at a new method of injection attack, some of those being researched methods, some of those coming from after action research on actual attacks. Copilot itself got targeted with a zero-click attack that would embed a hidden injection prompt into a email that had no other malicious attachment of its own, but it would just kind of wait until a query was made of Copilot, which would then by default go and pull email messages into the context that it's reviewing to answer. And at the time that it reviews that context and looks at that email, it then interprets and follows through on that injection prompt. So is it, I want to not be overly harsh in my wording here. Is it less than prudent to make this something that is increasingly difficult to opt out of, while one of the other biggest trends this year that we're talking about is the need to formalize a program around AI governance?
I was going to make a joke about Apple forcing us to listen to the new U2 album a couple of years back,
Right.
even though no one wanted it. So being able to opt out is great. I'll play a little bit of devil's advocate and say Microsoft machines come with a ton of crap that we might not even realize exists. So the bloatware, junkware, whatever you want to call it. So this is just one more thing they're baking into their app suite. So it's tough. Obviously, with this being so new, it's Copilot, new technology. We're seeing more attacks come out of it, like you highlighted, Zoe. So I'd be very reluctant. I think a lot of people are reluctant to see how security, keeps an eye on and evolves with these AI programs. So I think it's a scary scary timing for this, just because we've been seeing more and more of these attacks. So I'm a little worried about it.
Yeah, agreed. I So LLMs, AI in general, are tools, and the goals, right, that we normally get out of this is making everyday tasks a little bit easier. But those same things that we use to make our lives easier can also make attackers' lives a lot easier. Playing around with prompt injection too, in the limited capacity that I've been doing it in, um, has yielded, let's say, some interesting results. I would have liked to have seen Microsoft adopt an approach that would be similar to how Apple does with Siri and Apple Intelligence opt in rather than a manual opt out, like an automatic opt in, manual opt out, like it's taking right now with the current process that Microsoft is going through. Um, Less than prudent is a good choice of words, I think, for how I would also describe that. Yeah, there's there's a lot that can be done here to make it a little bit safer. And like with any new technology, we're seeing like this rapid adoption rate too, and people aren't really fully understanding everything that they're tying it into. And so, yeah, this gives me pause. If this was me in my environment or even just my home, I would personally be looking up how I can take some steps to mitigate some of the risks that are coming with this.
I remember when Siri first came out for Apple iPhones, and people were like, "It's going to take over your phone. It's going to drop malware." So people were disabling Siri, and Copilot is Siri literally times a million, maybe more. So I can guarantee there's going to be org-wide opt-outs for quite some time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To try and add our practical lessons piece that we always try and include as we're talking about one of these topics, I think there's a lesson to observe here about the impact that process and ease of compliance with process can have on effective security. Changing from a opt-in to an opt-out workflow is going to have a impact on how frequently folks are aware that they have this service enabled. There's a discussion to have about, for some folks, it's something that they will appreciate and get a great deal of use out of. For others, it may be something that they may never leverage or use, and yet may still have installed because they missed the buried menu where they could actually make a change there. In my previous life, I worked on a trusted access report that looked at huge volume of mobile device security stats. And we found that there was two changes that happened. I think this was 2017. We saw an increase in lock screens secured by PIN or biometric go from 74 the previous year, 74%, to 94% in a 1 year span. There were two major changes that suggested having an impact on that number that were new to that year. One was, I believe both Apple and Google switched to a initial device setup process that gave you the option to not set a PIN instead of asking if you wanted to set a PIN, and the wider use of biometric unlock factors. Like if you look at absolute risk, you still have to have a PIN backup. If you enroll Face ID, fingerprint scan, facial scan, you still have to have a PIN as a backup. So in absolute risk terms, you have two potential points of failure instead of one. But the much more likely risk is an unsecured device being lost or stolen, and making it easier to comply with that process made it much more widely adopted and resulted in a great increase in effective security. So I think whether you are a developer team looking for ways to build more trust with the folks that are using your software by shifting left and being more security aware in the development process, or if you're an admin that's trying to figure out how to roll out a new process within your environment, think about that usability. Think about how clearly communicated the necessary action and the reason why that action is important is communicated.
Yeah. Another example of that was back in like 2017. People were accidentally making their AWS 2017 and before making their AWS buckets, S3 buckets, public. Even though they were by default private, you could still do ACLs to make them public on accident. So then in 2018, AWS introduced the block public access setting. So even you could do the ACL to make it public. If you had that box checked, it would be private. So just kind of related. Like you need those extra steps to make sure what you're doing is the most security focused step forward.